Hi, my name is Tiffany Delquist, and this is my week 1 souvenir for TNL 528. So I just wrote down the different objectives that we were given for the first week, and then I just put some talking points on the side just to remind myself. So the first one was consider the importance of story in our lives, learning, and classrooms. So stories are incredibly important. I would say they're probably up there as most likely the most important thing that you do besides building relationships with your students. But stories also play a part in building those relationships. For example, like my students, when we started the year, they were so scared to make any kind of mistakes. But then in our math unit, we were talking about measurements, and they were getting frustrated about why they had to measure so precisely. And so I told them a story about my husband and I building a bookshelf, and I didn't measure very carefully, and the whole thing just did not work. It took us twice as long to build because we had to go back and fix all the measurement issues. So just showing them that it's okay to make mistakes, and then also bringing the content that we were learning into a real life situation. So I know that's a verbal story, but it's a story nonetheless. And then also we need to make sure that we're not just teaching how to read, but we're teaching how to love reading. So there's a difference there. We're not just teaching the mechanics, how to decode words, how to retell a story, but we're teaching them how to enjoy what they're doing. Because I know a lot of kids get frustrated with reading, but then there are also those that maybe they struggle with reading, but they also still really enjoy it because they found maybe a certain genre that really speaks to them, or maybe a topic that's really interesting for them. So just developing that love of reading. So the second one was apply the 3 guiding principles to your understanding of children's and young adult literature in your own life, your students' lives, and your classroom and or curriculum. So the 3 guiding principles really reminded me of the mantra that they talked about in the book, enjoy, dig deeply, take action. So when I look at that, in order for someone to really want to take action based on something that they've read, they have to dig deeper into it. They need to know what they have read about. They need to fully understand it. And then in order to continue doing that, they have to enjoy it. There has to be something in the reading that really spoke to them. So I kind of went backwards in the mantra, but I think in order to see how they're so connected, you kind of need to look in reverse. I mean, it's hard to take action without the dig deeply, and it's hard to dig deeply without the enjoyment. And then as I was reading, one thing that kept jumping out to me is how they kept talking about basal programs. Unfortunately, in Grand Forks, we do use a basal program, and I think most big districts do have that. We do Benchmark Advance, and it has its good parts. It really does, but the kids don't enjoy it as much. And I try to play up the enthusiasm during it, but when I tell them it's time for benchmark, I get all the moans and groans and do we have to, and I think as I was reading it, I was like, oh, this kind of explains why the kids are acting that way, because benchmark focuses a lot on the mechanics of reading and not so much the enjoyment. I mean, every other unit that we do is a fiction unit, and that usually gets a little more enjoyment. But like our first unit at the beginning of the year is on government. I mean, some kids really do love government. Most of them don't. So when we start out, they're getting a topic that they're not very excited about, and it's focused so heavily on the mechanics that they're not finding the joy in it. So as I was reading through the different chapters, it kind of hit me like, oh, maybe we should try and figure out how to make this work and have the kids enjoy it a little bit more. So then relative to your classroom curriculum, position, provide reasons for why reading aloud is crucial. I absolutely love read alouds. I wish I could do more of them. I struggle with the time piece. I'm working on it. That's one of my big goals for next year, is to make sure that I'm doing more read alouds. But it's such an enjoyable time. I feel like it's the best time to build that classroom community while still bringing in some of the curriculum stuff. You just get to introduce them to different kinds of books, different topics, different genres. You can have those deeper discussions. Like one one lesson that I like doing is for comparing and contrasting. We'll read an original version of Cinderella, and then we'll read a version told by the perspective of the stepmother. And then we talk about it. So we'll compare the two stories, and then we'll talk about, how it is looking at it from the stepmother's point of view, kind of change your view of the original. So just bringing in some of those deeper level thinkings, and we wouldn't get all of those if we weren't doing just like a read aloud. And then I'm also modeling those skills. So like I said, we do compare and contrast, talking about that. I can model the think alouds, like what's going through my brain as I'm reading. I can model some of those mechanics, like how to decode this word that's really tricky. So, but it's just in it almost feels like a more relaxed setting too. So all in all, I think read alouds are very crucial for classrooms. So that is my souvenir for 5/28.